Hello, my dear friends. One of the beautiful things that the Torah describes about the Kohen Gadol is V'nasa Aaron and Shemosim. Aaron carried the names of the Jewish people. Aaron, who was the Kohen Gadol, carried the names of the Jewish people when he served in the Mishkan and the Beis Hamikdash. And he carried the names in two ways. There was on his shoulders, there were shoulder straps known as the kisefos, ephod, and embedded in those straps were two precious stones, one on the right side, one on the left side. In each stone there were engraved the names of 6 of the tribes. In addition, Aaron wore on his heart, he had the Choshen HaMishpat, and there was a breastplate, and on that breastplate there were a setting of 12 precious stones, and in each stone there was the name of one of the tribes of the Jewish people. And regarding both, the Torah says, V'nas Aaron Shemosam Lifnei Hashem al Shnei Kesefo Zikar. He carried the names before Hashem on his shoulders for a remembrance of the Jewish people. And V'nas Aaron Shemos B'nei Yisrael V'choshen Mishpat Alibo. He carried the names on his heart. Bevo El Hakadosh, when he came into the holies before Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Why did Aaron have 2 sets of stones? Why wasn't it, if he wanted to carry the names of the Jewish people, why was it not sufficient to have 1 set? So I was thinking that the shoulders represent responsibility. You want to carry a heavy burden, you put it on your shoulders. The heart represents feeling, compassion, concern, sensitivity, and love. So Aaron had to be connected to the Jewish people in both ways. Number one, he carried the responsibility of the Jewish people. Thus, and Aaron Shemosam al Shnei Kesefo Zikar. He carried the names on his shoulders as a remembrance before HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's the sense of achrayus that he had to have for the Jewish people. Whereas on the Choshen HaMishpat, on the breastplate, that was the Choshen HaMishpat Alibo. That was on his heart. That was because he, in addition to feeling a sense of responsibility, he also had to care about each and every individual. Why is it that on the shoulders there were 2 stones, whereas in the breastplate there were 12 stones? So I was thinking, because when it comes to achrayus, to responsibility, oftentimes there's a conflict between the needs of the individual and the needs of the tzibur. So the tzibur always comes first because you're affecting a multitude of people. Whereas when it comes to caring about people, there is no conflict. There you have to worry about each and every single individual. If you worry about one, it doesn't conflict with worrying about all the others. So when it came to the stones on his breastplate, there it had to be a separate stone for each one of the tribes, because that was alibo, that was on his heart, and the heart has to be able to feel the pain and the emotion and the love for every individual. So therefore, each tribe had its own stone. But when it comes to achrayus, which is what Aaron was carrying on his shoulders, there it was achrayus. He had to think of it in more broader terms, and therefore there were 6 tribes on each shoulder. When you think about the role of the Kohen Gadol, that he had to carry the names. Literally, the Chumash says, "V'nasa Aaron." Aaron carried the names. He carried them on the stones. You see that was one of the primary roles of the Kohen Gadol, was to carry with him the needs and the love for the Jewish people. He carried on his shoulders. He carried on his heart. The one contrast this to leaders, secular leaders, which, especially in the world of politics, there are honest politicians and sincere politicians who really care about the people. But unfortunately, if you read the news, you know that there's so many politicians who have use the office for their own aggrandizement. They're more concerned with promoting themselves than they are with the welfare of the people, and that's completely in striking contrast to Aaron, and subsequent Kohen, the Kohen Gadol, that he had to literally carry the names of the Jewish people on his heart. That had to be near and dear to him at all times. This role of the Kohen Gadol was not expressed only by the stones that he carried on his shoulders and his heart. It's expressed in another way as well. The Torah says that if a person accidentally committed murder, and if he did it in a way that he was negligent, he should have been more careful, and he was not, So he's required to go to Ari Miklat, to a city of refuge, and he remains there admos Kohen Gadol, until the Kohen Gadol passes away. So the Gemara says in Makos that the mothers of the Kohen Gadol were worried that the people in the city would daven for the Kohen Gadol to die. They would want the son of these women to die so that they could be released finally from the Ari Miklat. So in order to sort of get on their better side, the Kohen Gadol's mother would provide food for the people who are living in the Ari Miklat, beseeching them that they should please not daven for the death and demise of her son. So the Gemara asks, and let's say they would daven for his demise. It's a kilas chinam. It's a unwanted curse, and therefore it should have no kilas chinam. Kilas chinam should have no impact because it's not justified. So the Gemara says no, it is justified because the Kohen Gadol is responsible for the murder that took place. How so? They should have davened for the welfare of their generation, and they didn't do so. Had they davened better, then the murder would not have taken place, and therefore they are partially to blame. So when the people who are in Ari Miklat, when they come before God and they complain, they say, we want to get out of here already, and please take away this Kohen Gadol, he's not guiltless because he's held accountable for the fact that the murder took place on his watch. He should have been davening for the welfare of the Jewish people. So you see, again, the enormous sense of achrayus and concern that the Kohen Gadol has to have for the Jewish people. Somebody commits murder. The natural way of thinking about it would be, is that the Kohen Gadol's fault? I mean, the fellow was negligent. It's his fault. The person that committed the act. What do you want from the Kohen Gadol? No, the Kohen Gadol, he should have been there for, even though he didn't know it was going to happen, but he should have been davening that there should be no tragedies among the Jewish people, and therefore the prayers of the people in Ari Miklat has some validity. Now, this is not only the role of the Kohen Gadol to be concerned about the welfare of the Jewish people. It's the role of every Jewish leader, and every single Jew is capable of being a Jewish leader. Every Jew, Kol Yisrael Ravim Zelzeh, every Jew is responsible for everybody else. We're all responsible for one another. And although we may not be the Kohen Gadol, but we all have a responsibility to think about the welfare and to daven for the welfare of Klal Yisrael. The Gemara the same Gemara in Makos and Daf Yud Aleph relates an amazing thing. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, who was one of the great Amoraim, used to see Eliyahu, used to visit him every day. Eliyahu Hanavi, he had a Gili Eliyahu. The Gemara says one time he stopped visiting for 3 days. Why is that? Because there was a person who was mauled and killed and consumed by a lion that was 4 parsi away. 4 parsis around maybe a mile and a half. So 4 parsi would be about 6 miles or 7 miles, something like that. So there was somebody was mauled by a lion 4 parsi away from Yeshua ben Levi, and for 3 days Eliyahu Navi didn't come to visit Yeshua ben Levi, which is to say that he considered him to be guilty of because of his negligence. There was a murder that took place in Klal Yisrael. So you'll say again that when somebody's a murderer, does that have anything to do with Yeshua ben Levi? So yes, it does, because he should have been there for Klal Yisrael. And if you see that Yeshua ben Levi, he wasn't the Kohen Gadol, Yeshua ben Levi, but he should have been concerned. He should have been preemptively davening for the welfare of the Jewish people. He didn't do so. He is held accountable and responsible. I was thinking the Gemara says that the reason why the event of accidental murders take place, at least in the time of the Beis Hamikdash, not today, but in those days, there was a reason why it happened that way. Because the Gemara says that if you had 2 people one committed murder accidentally, one committed murder intentionally, but there were no witnesses. So what does the Kadosh Baruch Hu do? He has those two people, the accidental and the intentional murderer, should end up in a hotel together, and the intentional murderer should go up on a ladder. The accidental murderer should walk underneath the ladder, and then the ladder will collapse, and the person who committed murder intentionally, and there were no Eidim, he will kill the other person who committed murder unintentionally. And that will be, and what will happen is that the one who committed murder on the ladder will have to go to Ari Miklat. He'll have to go to the city of refuge. So that will be his punishment, that even though there were no witnesses, so the courts can't do anything, but God arranged a punishment for this individual. So you see that the person who, if somebody committed murder, who was the person that accidental murder? Who's the person, at least in the time of Beis Hamikdash, who's the person that he's murdering? He's murdering a person who was an intentional murderer. In order that the intentional murderer should meet his demise, so the Kadosh Baruch Hu arranged that he should fall, the unintentional murderer should fall on the intentional murder. So that means that this person that died, the Kohen Gadol, should have davened that the murder should not take place. Whose welfare was he seeking? Was he seeking the welfare of some righteous individual? No, it was the person who died was a murderer, and he had murdered previously intentionally. Just there were no witnesses. Otherwise, he would have been put to death by the Bezdin. Because there were no witnesses, so HaKadosh Baruch Hu orchestrated this event. And nonetheless, you see that even for that individual, he's a murderer. Still, the Kohen Gadol is responsible, that he should have davened on his behalf. You see, that's how great is the responsibility of Manhigei Yisrael. It was well known. Rabbi Levine was the tzaddik of Yerushalayim. He used to visit the prisoners in Eretz Yisrael in Yerushalayim. Every Shabbos he would walk to the prison, and there were murderers and thieves and other people. There were also people from the Haganah that were many of them were great tzaddikim, but they put their lives in danger for the benefit of Klal Yisrael. But there were also people there who were petty criminals and the like. And Rabbi Levine was their father. Even somebody, there's a terrific biography about Rabbi Levine, a tzaddik in our times, by Simcha Raz. And I remember I read it maybe 50 years ago, fantastic biography. And he writes there that there was a person who Rabbi Levine would bring, during the week he would come and bring tefillin for the inmates to put on tefillin. And there was one person who refused to put on tefillin, and he kept on trying to convince him to put on tefillin. And finally the person says, you know why I don't want to put on tefillin? I can't put on tefillin because with this hand I committed murder, so I'm going to use this hand to don tefillin. And Rabbi Levine was able to convince him to wear tefillin. But those are the type of people that Rabbi Levine, he would make the trek. If it was rain or snow, it was, even when he's an older man, he would walk every Shabbos to see the inmates in the prison. He cared about every single Jew, even somebody who was a murderer. He became their father. He related to them with great love and affection. So you see that the Kohen Gadol had to be concerned, even for somebody who was a murderer. He needed to daven that the murderer shouldn't die, even though he deserved to die. That's God orchestrated this event, but he had to be concerned about even the welfare of even that individual. So this is a beautiful and powerful model and lesson for all of us, the way we should relate to Klal Yisrael. Just as the Kohen Gadol carried the names of the Jewish people on his shoulders, he felt the achrayus, and on his heart, on his leiv, he felt it with sensitivity and feeling the needs of every individual. We too, even though we're not the Kohen Gadol, but we're like Yeshua ben Levi wasn't the Kohen Gadol either, but he was held accountable that the man was mauled by a lion. So we also are going to be held accountable, and we have to make sure that we carry the names. Carrying the names means it's so personal and so intense, and that's how we have to relate to every single individual of Klal Yisrael.